The massive chamber stretched before Ambassador Lee Hana like a cathedral built for giants. Crystalline walls rose hundreds of feet into the air, their surfaces glowing with soft blue light that cast dancing shadows across the assembled delegates. This was the heart of the Galactic Council, where decisions that affected billions of lives were made daily. Hana walked forward with steady steps, her black boots clicking against the polished floor. Her uniform was simple compared to the elaborate armor and robes worn by the other species around her. The dark blue fabric was clean and pressed, with silver buttons running down the front. On her left shoulder sat a small emblem that most beings in the room had already dismissed as meaningless decoration. She was not alone. Captain Kang Minho walked 3 steps behind her and to the right, his own uniform identical except for the different rank insignia on his collar. His face showed no emotion, but his eyes moved constantly, taking in every detail of their surroundings. Behind them came 12 more humans in similar uniforms, all walking in perfect formation. The alien delegates watched this small procession with mixtures of amusement and contempt. To most of them, humans looked like children playing dress-up, in their parents' clothes, small, weak, soft-bodied creatures who had barely learned to travel between stars while other species had been building galactic empires for thousands of years. At the center of the chamber stood 3 massive platforms, each one designed to accommodate a different type of being. The first platform rose 20 feet into the air and was built from black volcanic stone. Upon it stood Commander Yoon Tai-ho of the Vorthak Defense Corps. He was 9 feet tall and covered in dark green scales that glittered like emeralds in the chamber light. His head was elongated like that of a crocodile, filled with rows of sharp teeth. Muscles rippled beneath his scales as he shifted his weight, and his yellow eyes tracked every movement the humans made. The second platform appeared to be made of living crystal that pulsed with inner fire. Upon it stood Captain Resonance of Victory of the Silicate Hegemony. The being had no fixed form, instead existing as a constantly shifting arrangement of rainbow-colored crystal fragments that moved like liquid glass. When it spoke, its voice sounded like wind chimes in a gentle breeze, beautiful but somehow cold. The third platform was a maze of organic tubes and chambers that seemed to breathe with a life of their own. Within this living architecture moved dozens of insectoid creatures, each no larger than a human hand but working together as a single mind. They were the Swarm Collective, and their spokesperson was called the Queen Speaker, though telling one individual bug from another was impossible. For most other species, Ambassador Hana reached the center of the chamber and stopped. She did not bow or show any other sign of submission. Instead, she simply stood straight and waited for permission to speak. This small act of defiance did not go unnoticed by the assembled aliens. Commander Tai-ho spoke first, his voice a deep rumble that seemed to come from the depths of the earth. So these are the humans we have heard whispers about, the newcomers who think they deserve a place among the great powers of the galaxy. He leaned forward on his platform, his massive hands gripping the stone railing. I have studied your species' military records. You fight among yourselves constantly. Your wars are small and primitive. Your weapons are crude chemical explosives and metal projectiles. What could such beings possibly offer to an alliance of true warriors? Hana remained silent, but Captain Minho stepped forward slightly. His movement was smooth and controlled, drawing attention to the fact that despite his smaller size, he showed no fear of the massive alien looming above him. Captain Resonance of Victory chimed in with its crystalline voice. The Vorthak speak truly, though with their usual lack of elegance. Our intelligence reports indicate that human military doctrine relies heavily on overwhelming numbers and primitive tactics. In contrast, our battle forms are crafted from the hearts of dying stars. Each of our warriors can reshape their body at will, becoming any weapon the situation requires. The living platform of the Swarm Collective pulsed, and hundreds of small voices spoke in unison to create the Queen Speaker's words. Individual consciousness is weakness. Your species thinks with separate minds, each pulling in different directions. We are unity. We are perfection. When we move to war, 10,000 minds think as one. No individual force can stand against such coordination. Commander Tai-ho laughed, a sound like grinding stone. The insects speak of coordination, but they lack the strength to make coordination meaningful. My obsidian guard are bred from birth for warfare. Each warrior stands 8 feet tall and can tear through steel plating with their bare claws. They know no fear because fear has been removed from their genetic code. They know no mercy because mercy is weakness. They are perfect killing machines. Perfect killing machines with the tactical flexibility of rocks. Captain Resonance of Victory replied with what might have been amusement. The silicate hegemony has transcended such crude biological limitations. Our diamond phalanx can analyze any battlefield in microseconds and adapt instantly to counter any threat. Mathematics governs all warfare, and our calculations are flawless. The debate continued for several minutes, with each species boasting of their military superiority while dismissing the capabilities of the others. Throughout it all, the humans remained silent and still. This only seemed to irritate the aliens more. Finally, Commander Taiho turned his attention back to the small human delegation. You have heard the capabilities of true military powers, humans. Your application speaks of joining our alliance as equals, but what can you possibly contribute? Your largest ships are smaller than our escort vessels. Your most advanced weapons would barely scratch our armor. Your soldiers are untrained civilians compared to our elite forces. Ambassador Hana finally spoke, her voice carrying clearly through the vast chamber despite its quiet tone. Commander Taiho raises interesting points about military capability. Perhaps a demonstration would be more informative than discussion. The alien delegates exchanged glances that ranged from surprise to amused. Captain Resonance of Victory's crystalline form shifted into what might have been laughter. A demonstration? You wish to show us your primitive capabilities? I wish to show you our soldiers, Hana replied simply. If you are willing to test your elite forces against our people, under any conditions you choose. Commander Taiho's scales rippled with what was clearly excitement. Any conditions we choose? This is acceptable. We will arrange a proper military exercise where your soldiers can be measured against real warriors. The Queen Speaker's thousands of voices buzzed with anticipation. The demonstration will be educational. Perhaps humans will learn the difference between imagination and reality. Hana nodded once. The demonstration will indeed be educational. She placed her right hand over the small emblem on her left shoulder, a gesture that seemed casual but somehow carried weight. When shall we begin? The arrangements were made quickly. In 3 days, on the neutral training world of Nexus Prime, the greatest military units of 4 species would meet in combat exercises designed to test every aspect of warfare. The aliens were already planning victory celebrations. As the human delegation left the chamber, Captain Minho moved closer to Ambassador Hana. They have no idea what they just agreed to, he said quietly. Hana smiled for the first time since entering the chamber. No, she agreed, her fingers still resting on the emblem that none of the aliens had bothered to examine closely. They do not. The emblem was small and simple, showing intertwined helixes surrounding what looked like a map of neural pathways. To most observers, it was just decorative. But to those who understood its meaning, it represented something that would soon change the balance of power in the galaxy forever. Nexus Prime was a world built for war games. The planet's surface had been shaped by thousands of years of military exercises, creating the perfect testing ground for any species that wanted to prove their combat skills. Mountains rose like jagged teeth from plains covered in mock cities. Rivers cut through valleys that had been designed as natural choke points. Everything on this world existed to challenge soldiers and test their limits. The morning sun cast long shadows across the main staging area where 4 different species prepared for the demonstration that would determine humanity's place in the galactic community. The area buzzed with activity as alien forces made their final preparations. Commander Yun Taiho stood at the center of his troops, like a general from ancient legends. His obsidian guard were arranged in perfect formation. Behind him, each warrior a masterpiece of genetic engineering. They stood 8 feet tall, their black scales gleaming like polished armor. Their eyes glowed red in the morning light, and when they moved it was with the fluid grace of predators who had never known defeat. There were 100 of them, each one capable of tearing through steel with their bare claws. Their weapons were works of art, plasma rifles that could melt through tank armor and vibroblades that could cut through almost any material. They had been bred for war, trained from birth, and knew nothing but victory. On the opposite side of the staging area, the silicate hegemony's diamond phalanx prepared in their own unique way. 100 crystalline beings shifted and flowed like living gemstones, their bodies constantly changing shape as they tested different configurations. Some formed into humanoid shapes with sword-like appendages. Others became geometric patterns that could slice through enemies from multiple angles at once. Captain Resonance of Victory moved among them like a conductor preparing an orchestra. Each crystal warrior could communicate with the others through light-based signals that traveled at the speed of thought. Their tactics were mathematical perfection, calculated to exploit every possible weakness in their enemies. The swarm collectives forces were perhaps the most unsettling to observe. 100 individual bug-like creatures moved in perfect synchronization, each one no larger than a human child, but deadly in their coordination. They carried weapons that seemed too large for their small frames, but when they moved together, they could accomplish tasks that would challenge much larger beings. The Queen Speaker stood at their center, its form slightly larger than the others, but still tiny compared to the warriors of the other species. When it gave commands, every member of the swarm responded instantly, moving like parts of a single vast organism. And then there were the humans. 12 soldiers stood in a loose group near their transport ship. They wore simple combat armor that looked primitive compared to the advanced gear of the other species. Their weapons were basic projectile rifles and sidearms, along with simple explosive devices and communication equipment. To any observer, they looked completely outmatched. Sergeant Park Suman stood at the front of the group, checking her equipment one final time. She was of average height for a human, with short black hair and calm brown eyes. Nothing about her appearance suggested she was anything special, which was exactly how she preferred it. Behind her, 11 other soldiers made their own preparations. Private Kim Nari cleaned her rifle with practiced movements, her fingers moving across the weapon like a pianist playing a familiar song. She was young, barely 25, but her eyes held the steady gaze of someone who had seen combat before. Corporal Choi Jae-sung studied a tactical display on his wrist-mounted computer, memorizing the layout of the test area. The other soldiers, Oh Dae-ho, Shin Hyuna, Bae Woo-jin, Lim So-young, Han Kyung-woo, Ro Ji-won, Nam Jin-ha, Yoo Hee-jin, Jung Dong-hyun, and An Seul-gi, each focused on their own preparations with quiet concentration. What the alien observers could not see was the invisible network of communication and coordination that connected all 12 humans. Years of conditioning had created links between them that went far beyond simple radio contact. They could sense each other's positions, predict each other's movements, and coordinate their actions with precision that seemed almost telepathic. Ambassador Lee Hana watched from the observation tower alongside General Won Sang-hoon, Earth's highest-ranking military officer. The general was a man in his 60s with gray hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. He had spent his entire career preparing for this moment, though few people knew it. "The odds are not in our favor," General Won observed, watching the alien forces through binoculars. 300 elite warriors against 12 of our people. "Numbers have never been the deciding factor in warfare," Hana replied, her fingers unconsciously touching the emblem on her sleeve. "Superior force means nothing without superior application. The test itself would be complex. The 4 species would compete in a series of urban warfare scenarios designed to challenge every aspect of military skill. There would be multiple objectives to accomplish, including rescuing hostages, securing strategic points, and eliminating enemy forces. The environment would change constantly, with new threats appearing without warning. Advanced AI systems controlled defensive networks throughout the test area. These systems had been programmed by the best military minds in the galaxy and were designed to defeat any conventional attack. Previous exercises had seen even the most elite alien forces struggle against these defenses. Commander Taiho announced the beginning of the exercise with obvious confidence. Today will be educational for all involved. The humans will learn what real warfare looks like. Captain Resonance of Victory's crystalline form pulsed with light patterns that indicated amusement. Mathematical analysis indicates a 97% probability of human failure within the first 30 minutes. The Queen Speaker's thousands of voices buzzed in harmony. Coordination will triumph over chaos. Unity will defeat individualism. The exercise began with a sharp tone that echoed across the staging area. Immediately, the three alien forces deployed according to their traditional doctrines. The Obsidian Guard charged forward in a massive wedge formation, relying on their superior strength and armor to overwhelm any resistance. The Diamond Phalanx spread out in geometric patterns that provided overlapping fields of fire and mutual support. The Swarm Collective moved like a living tide, flowing around obstacles and converging on objectives with perfect timing. The human squad simply disappeared. Within seconds of the exercise beginning, all 12 human soldiers had vanished from sight. The alien forces found themselves fighting against empty air, while their opponents melted away like shadows. Security cameras throughout the test area recorded the aliens' movements, but showed no sign of the humans anywhere. This was not invisibility, technology, or advanced camouflage. This was something far more dangerous. The humans had not hidden from their enemies. They had positioned themselves exactly where their enemies would not think to look. They moved through the urban environment like ghosts, using knowledge of alien psychology and tactics to stay one step ahead of their opponents. Sergeant Park's voice whispered through the communication network to her team. Phase 1 complete. Beginning infiltration protocols. The real demonstration was about to begin. The first objective was a mock embassy building in the center of the test city. Intelligence reports indicated that hostile forces were holding 12 diplomats hostage on the 3rd floor. The building was surrounded by defensive positions and protected by automated gun turrets that would engage any approaching forces. Commander Taiho's Obsidian Guard approached the problem with typical directness. 50 of his warriors formed a spearhead formation and charged straight at the building's main entrance. Their plasma rifles fired continuously, overwhelming the defensive turrets through sheer volume of fire. The remaining 50 warriors spread out to secure a perimeter and prevent any enemies from escaping. It was a classic military assault, executed with perfect precision and overwhelming force. The Obsidian Guard breached the building's defenses within minutes and began clearing floors in systematic fashion. Their genetic enhancements made them nearly unstoppable in direct combat, and their coordination was flawless. But when they reached the 3rd floor, they found it empty. The hostages were gone. On the other side of the city, the Diamond Phalanx had identified a strategic communications center that needed to be captured intact. Captain Resonance of Victory deployed its forces in a perfect mathematical formation that provided optimal coverage and mutual support. Each crystalline warrior took a position calculated to maximize their effectiveness while minimizing their exposure to enemy fire. The formation was beautiful to observe, like a deadly geometric pattern that flowed across the urban landscape. The AI defensive systems recognized the threat and deployed countermeasures, but the silicates had calculated the optimal response to every possible defense. Their advance was slow but unstoppable, each movement part of a larger mathematical equation that would inevitably result in victory. When they reached the communications center, they found that all the equipment had been sabotaged. The facility was useless. Meanwhile, the Swarm Collective had been tasked with securing a weapons depot on the outskirts of the test city. 100 insectoid warriors moved in perfect coordination, flowing around obstacles like water while maintaining constant communication through their telepathic link. No human mind could have coordinated such complex movements, but the swarm thought as one. They encountered heavy resistance from automated defenses, but their coordination allowed them to attack from multiple directions simultaneously. While some warriors drew the attention of defensive turrets, others slipped through gaps in the coverage and disabled the weapons from behind. It was a textbook example of collective intelligence overcoming individual opposition. When they secured the depot, they discovered that all the weapons had been removed hours earlier. In the observation tower, alien military advisors watched the exercise with growing confusion. General Wan maintained his calm expression, but Ambassador Hana allowed herself a small smile. "Where are the humans?" demanded a Vorthak observer. "Our sensors show them nowhere in the combat zone." "Perhaps they have fled," suggested a silicate military analyst. Their primitive courage failed when faced with real opposition, but the swarm collectives monitoring insects scattered throughout the test area began reporting strange occurrences. Equipment failures in critical systems, communication disruptions that lasted only seconds but came at crucial moments. Supply, routes that seemed clear but somehow resulted in delayed reinforcements. The truth was that the 12 human soldiers had not engaged in direct combat at all. Instead, they had divided into 3 teams of 4 and begun a campaign of psychological and tactical warfare that turned the exercise itself into their weapon. Sergeant Park's team had infiltrated the embassy building through maintenance tunnels, 30 minutes before the Obsidian Guard began their assault. While the Vorthak warriors were fighting through the lower floors, Park's people were evacuating the hostages through the same tunnels and relocating them to a secure position 6 blocks away. By the time the aliens reached the 3rd floor, the rescue was already complete. Private Kim and Corporal Choi led the 2nd team in an electronic warfare campaign against the silicate forces. They had identified the mathematical patterns governing the diamond phalanx's movements and introduced subtle chaos variables into the AI systems controlling the communication center. Instead of fighting the silicates directly, they made the environment itself unpredictable, forcing the crystalline warriors to constantly recalculate their perfect formations. The 3rd team, led by Oh Daiho and Shin Hyuna, had used their understanding of collective intelligence to disrupt the swarm collective's coordination. They had not jammed the telepathic links directly, which would have been impossible with human technology. Instead, they had created false information that appeared to come from legitimate swarm sources, causing brief moments of confusion that accumulated into larger tactical errors. All 3 human teams had accomplished this while remaining completely invisible to their opponents. They did not use advanced camouflage or stealth technology. Instead, they used their deep understanding of alien psychology to position themselves exactly where their enemies would not think to look. The Vorthak warriors were bred for direct combat and thought in terms of frontal assault and overwhelming force. They did not consider the possibility that an enemy might avoid fighting altogether. The silicate forces relied on mathematical analysis and perfect calculation. They could not account for variables that changed the fundamental nature of the problem they were trying to solve. The swarm collective's strength was their unity and coordination, but this same strength made them vulnerable to information warfare that targeted their communication networks. 2 hours into the exercise, all 3 alien forces had accomplished their immediate objectives but had failed to achieve their strategic goals. The hostages were safe, the communication center was useless, and the weapons depot was empty. Meanwhile, the human forces had not lost a single soldier and had barely fired their weapons. Commander Taiho's voice crackled over the communication network. "Where are these humans? Fight us directly, cowards." Captain Resonance of Victory's crystalline tones carried frustration. "This is not warfare. This is trickery and deception." The Queen Speaker's collective voice buzzed with anger. "Individual consciousness creates unpredictable behavior. This violates the natural order." In response, Sergeant Park's voice came over the general communication channel, calm and professional. "Exercise objectives Alpha, Beta, and Gamma have been completed. All primary goals achieved with 0 casualties. Human forces standing by for next phase." The alien forces scrambled to regroup, but they were fighting an enemy that refused to engage them on their own terms. The humans had turned the exercise itself into a weapon, using the aliens' own strengths against them and exploiting weaknesses that the other species did not even know they possessed. In the observation tower, General Wan nodded with satisfaction. "Phase 1 complete. Our people are performing exactly as expected." Ambassador Hana touched the emblem on her sleeve again, her fingers tracing the pattern of intertwined helixes and neural pathways. "The demonstration is proceeding according to plan." The real test was just beginning. The exercise had lasted 6 hours. 6 hours of frustration, confusion, and growing anger for the alien forces as they struggled against an enemy that seemed to exist everywhere and nowhere at once. When the final tone sounded to end the demonstration, the score was devastating. The human team had completed all 12 primary objectives and 18 secondary objectives. They had rescued all hostages, secured all strategic points, and neutralized all target systems. More importantly, they had done this while simultaneously disrupting every major operation attempted by the 3 alien forces. The Obsidian Guard, despite their superior numbers and equipment, had managed to complete only 3 of their assigned objectives. The Diamond Phalanx had achieved 5 objectives, but 3 of their completed missions had been rendered meaningless by human interference. The Swarm Collective had completed 7 objectives, but had been forced to retreat from 2 positions. They had already secured 0 human casualties, 43 alien warriors marked as eliminated by the exercise computer systems. In the debriefing chamber, the atmosphere was tense. Commander Tejo paced back and forth like a caged predator, his scales dark with anger. This is impossible. Our intelligence reports indicated that humans were primitive warriors with no significant military capabilities. How did 12 soldiers defeat 300 elite troops? His voice rose to a roar. My Obsidian Guard are bred from birth for warfare. Their genetic code has been perfected over thousands of years. Each warrior has the strength of 10 normal beings and reflexes faster than most species can even perceive. They have never known defeat in combat. Captain Resonance of Victory's crystalline form pulsed with patterns of deep confusion. Our tactical analysis systems are mathematically perfect. We calculate every possible variable and determine the optimal response to any situation. Our probability matrices indicated a 97% chance of human failure. The crystal being's voice took on a frustrated tone that sounded like breaking glass. How can mathematical certainty be defeated by biological randomness? It violates fundamental principles of logical warfare. The Queen Speaker's thousands of voices buzzed in chaotic harmony, reflecting the confusion of the collective mind behind them. Individual consciousness is weakness. Separate minds cannot coordinate as efficiently as unified thought. Our telepathic coordination allows perfect communication and flawless execution of complex strategies. The insectoid spokesperson's tone became almost pleading. How can 12 separate minds outthink one perfect collective intelligence? It should not be possible. Ambassador Lihana had remained silent during the aliens' protests, but now she stood and walked to the center of the chamber. Her movements were calm and controlled, showing none of the triumph that the aliens expected from a victorious commander. You have asked the same question in 3 different ways, she said quietly. You want to know how humans achieved what you consider impossible. You believe that your methods of creating elite soldiers are superior to ours, and today's results contradict that belief. She reached up and slowly began rolling up the left sleeve of her uniform. The small emblem that had seemed like simple decoration was revealed in much greater detail. The intertwined helixes were not artistic designs but precise scientific diagrams. The neural network pattern was not decorative but functional, showing pathways and connections that the alien observers had never seen before. You boast that your troops are elite through breeding, forging, or collective consciousness, Hana continued, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber. Each of your species has perfected a different approach to military excellence. But you all share one fundamental assumption. She paused and looked directly at each of the alien commanders in turn. You assume that soldiers must be born with the capabilities they need for warfare. That elite warriors are created through genetics, through technology, or through biological unity. General Wan stepped forward, carrying a data pad that displayed complex charts and graphs. Our approach is different. We do not breed perfect warriors or forge crystalline battle forms or create hive minds. Instead, we take ordinary humans and transform them into whatever the situation requires. The data pad projected a holographic display that filled the center of the chamber. Brain scans showed neural pathways that had been restructured and enhanced. Genetic analyses revealed controlled expression patterns that optimized physical performance. Psychological profiles demonstrated mental flexibility that allowed rapid adaptation to any environment. The soldiers you face today were not born special, General Wan explained. Sergeant Park was selected as a child, not because she was physically superior, but because she showed exceptional mental adaptability. Private Kim was chosen not for her natural reflexes, but for her ability to learn and change her thinking patterns. Dr. Hong Mi-jin, Earth's leading military biologist, entered the chamber and approached the holographic display. She was a small woman with gray hair and glasses, looking more like a university professor than a military scientist. But her presence commanded immediate attention from everyone in the room. What you witnessed today was the result of 20 years of advanced conditioning research, Dr. Hong said, manipulating the holographic display to show detailed biological data. We discovered that the human brain has remarkable plasticity that continues throughout life. With the right techniques, we can reshape neural pathways to optimize decision-making, pattern recognition, and tactical thinking. The display shifted to show genetic information. Human DNA contains vast potential that is normally expressed only partially. Through controlled environmental factors and biochemical triggers, we can activate genetic sequences that enhance physical performance, reaction time, and stress resistance. A new section of data appeared, showing psychological profiles and training records. Most importantly, we developed conditioning techniques that eliminate cognitive limitations while preserving creative thinking and adaptability. Our soldiers can function in any environment, use any weapons, and adapt to any enemy because they have been conditioned to transcend normal human limitations. Commander Taiho stared at the data with a mixture of fascination and horror. You modify your own species? You change their fundamental nature? We do not change their nature, Dr. Hong replied calmly. We unlock their potential. Every human has the capacity for what you witnessed today. We simply provide the conditioning necessary to access those capabilities. Captain Resonance of Victories. Crystalline form shifted into geometric patterns of analysis. This explains the mathematical impossibility we observed. Your soldiers were not following standard tactical doctrine, because they had been conditioned to think beyond conventional limitations. The Queen Speaker's collective voice carried a note of something like fear. Individual consciousness that has been optimized beyond normal parameters. Separate minds that can coordinate as effectively as collective intelligence but retain creative unpredictability. This creates variables that cannot be calculated. Ambassador Hana nodded. The emblem on my sleeve represents our conditioning program. The helixes show genetic optimization. The neural pathways show mental enhancement. Together, they create soldiers who can become whatever the mission requires. She walked over to a window that looked out over the staging area where the 12 human soldiers were packing their equipment. Sergeant Park and her team are not the strongest soldiers in the galaxy. They are not the fastest or the most heavily armed, but they are the most adaptable. They can learn any skill, use any weapon, fight any enemy, and win any battle because they have been conditioned to transcend the limitations that define other species. General Wan closed the holographic display. This is humanity's contribution to the Galactic Alliance, not superior numbers or advanced technology, but the ability to make any soldier, any strategy, any weapon more effective than it was before. The alien commanders stood in stunned silence, finally understanding what they had faced in the exercise. They had not been defeated by superior force or advanced technology. They had been outfought by 12 humans who had been conditioned to be better than anyone thought possible. The revelation changed everything. The next morning brought a second gathering in the Galactic Council chambers, but this time the atmosphere was completely different. Where before there had been dismissive arrogance, now there was intense curiosity and barely concealed concern. The alien delegates had spent the night analyzing the human victory, and none of their conclusions were comforting. Dr. Hong Mi-jin stood at the center of the chamber, surrounded by holographic displays that showed the inner workings of human military conditioning. She had been given permission to reveal the complete scientific basis behind Earth's military superiority, and the information she shared would reshape galactic warfare forever. The process begins in childhood, Dr. Hong explained, manipulating the display to show brain development patterns. We identify candidates not through genetic screening or physical testing, but through psychological evaluation. We look for minds that show exceptional adaptability and learning capacity. The first hologram showed a young girl of perhaps 8 years old, running through what appeared to be a simple obstacle course. But the course was constantly changing, requiring her to adapt her movements and strategy every few seconds. This was Sergeant Park Suman, 20 years before she became one of humanity's most effective soldiers. The child you see here scored in the top 1% for neural plasticity and adaptive thinking. She was not faster or stronger than her peers, but she could learn new skills and adjust to changing situations more quickly than almost any other human we tested. The display shifted to show Park's brain activity during various tasks. Patterns of neural firing showed how information flowed through different regions of her mind, creating connections and pathways that most beings could never develop. Traditional military training focuses on teaching specific skills and tactics. Our conditioning program does something different. We teach the brain itself how to learn more effectively. We create neural pathways that allow rapid skill acquisition and immediate adaptation to new situations. Commander Taiho leaned forward on his platform, his yellow eyes fixed on the brain scan images. How is this possible? Neural development is fixed by genetics. Even our enhanced obsidian guard cannot change their fundamental thought patterns after reaching maturity. Dr. Hong smiled slightly. That assumption is incorrect. Human brains remain plastic throughout life, capable of creating new neural pathways and modifying existing ones. With the right combination of biochemical triggers, targeted stress, and controlled environmental factors, we can guide this plasticity to create optimized thinking patterns. The holographic display showed a time-lapse view of Park's neural development over several years of conditioning. New pathways appeared and strengthened while others were modified or abandoned. The final result was a brain that could process tactical information, adapt to threats, and coordinate with team members far more effectively than a normal human mind. The conditioning process takes 7 years on average, Dr. Hong continued. During this time, subjects undergo carefully controlled physical and mental challenges designed to push them beyond normal human limitations, while their brains adapt to handle the increased demands. Captain Resonance of Victory's crystalline form pulsed with rapid calculation patterns. This explains the tactical flexibility we observed. Your soldiers' minds had been restructured to think beyond conventional parameters. But how do they maintain coordination without collective consciousness? The holographic display shifted to show communication patterns between the 12 human soldiers during the exercise. Lines of connection appeared between them, showing how information and coordination flowed through the team. Enhanced empathy and pattern recognition, Dr. Hong explained. Our conditioned soldiers develop an intuitive understanding of human behavior and decision-making that approaches telepathy. They can predict their teammates' actions and coordinate their own responses without direct communication. Private Kim Nari appeared in the hologram, her brain activity displayed during a complex team exercise. Neural patterns showed how she was simultaneously monitoring her own tasks, tracking her teammates' positions, and anticipating enemy movements. This level of coordination requires extensive conditioning of the brain's social processing centers. Our soldiers learn to read micro-expressions, body language, and tactical positioning so effectively that they can communicate complex information through subtle gestures and positioning. The Queen Speaker's thousands of voices buzzed with confusion, but individual minds remain separate. How can separate consciousness achieve unity of purpose without collective intelligence? Dr. Hong manipulated the display to show all 12 soldiers' brain patterns during the exercise, their neural activity synchronized despite physical separation. Conditioned empathy creates functional unity while preserving individual creativity and adaptability. Each soldier thinks independently, but can coordinate with the team as effectively as if they shared a collective mind. The display zoomed in on specific neural pathways that had been enhanced through conditioning. We strengthen the brain regions responsible for social cognition and emotional intelligence while maintaining the independence that allows creative problem-solving. The result is coordinated individualism rather than collective consciousness. General Wan stepped forward to address the genetic aspects of human conditioning. Dr. Hong has explained the neural modifications, but our program also includes controlled genetic expression optimization. The holographic display shifted to show DNA sequences and gene expression patterns. Human genetic code contains vast potential that is normally activated only partially throughout life. Through controlled environmental triggers and biochemical factors, we can selectively activate genetic sequences that enhance physical performance. Sergeant Park's genetic profile appeared, showing active gene sequences that improved reaction, time, stress resistance, and physical coordination. These modifications are not permanent alterations to the genetic code. Instead, we activate existing human potential that remains dormant in most individuals. Commander Taiho's scales rippled with interest. You do not breed superior warriors. You awaken the superior warrior that already exists within normal humans? Precisely, General Wan confirmed. Every human has the genetic potential for enhanced performance. Our conditioning program provides the triggers necessary to express that potential. The result is soldiers who possess capabilities that match or exceed those of genetically enhanced species, but who retain the adaptability and creativity of unmodified humans. The final section of data showed psychological profiles of conditioned soldiers. Charts displayed stress tolerance, decision-making, speed, and adaptability ratings that exceeded normal human ranges by significant margins. The psychological conditioning is perhaps the most important aspect of our program, Dr. Hong said. We eliminate cognitive limitations while preserving mental flexibility. Fear responses are controlled but not eliminated, allowing rational decision-making under extreme stress. Aggression is channeled but not suppressed, providing motivation without compromising judgment. Corporal Choi Jae-sung appeared in the hologram, his psychological profile displayed during various combat scenarios. His responses remained calm and rational, even under conditions that would break most beings' sanity. Traditional military training teaches soldiers to overcome their limitations through discipline and willpower. Our conditioning program eliminates those limitations entirely. Our soldiers do not struggle against fear or confusion because they have been conditioned to think clearly regardless of external circumstances. The alien delegates absorbed this information with growing understanding and concern. They had built their military supremacy on assumptions about the nature of elite warriors that the humans had proven completely wrong. The 12 soldiers you faced yesterday represent the basic level of our conditioning program, Dr. Hong concluded. We currently have over 10,000 similarly conditioned soldiers in service, with thousands more in various stages of the conditioning process. Ambassador Hana spoke for the first time during the presentation. Earth's military doctrine is based on a simple principle. Any soldier can be improved. Any strategy can be adapted. Any enemy can be defeated if you understand how to optimize the tools available to you. She indicated the emblem on her sleeve one final time. We do not create perfect warriors through breeding or technology. We perfect the warriors we have, through conditioning and science. The implications were staggering and would reshape the balance of power throughout the galaxy. 6 months after the demonstration on Nexus Prime, the Galactic Military Cooperation Treaty was signed in the same chamber where humanity had first been dismissed as primitive newcomers. But the document that emerged from months of negotiations bore little resemblance to the original proposal that would have made Earth a junior partner in an alien-dominated alliance. Ambassador Lee Hana stood at the podium, no longer the representative of a species seeking acceptance, but the architect of a new military order. The small emblem on her sleeve had become the most recognized symbol in galactic military circles, representing capabilities that had fundamentally changed how warfare was understood and conducted. Admiral Song Jinwook, formerly captain of Earth's flagship vessel, now commanded the largest military fleet in galactic history. The promotion had come not through political maneuvering, but through demonstrated competence as human-trained officers began revolutionizing military effectiveness across all member species. The Alliance Defense Network now encompasses 47 star systems, Admiral Song reported to the assembled delegates. Joint task forces combining human strategic doctrine with alien capabilities have achieved operational success rates exceeding 90% in all engagement categories. Commander Taiho, his initial arrogance replaced by hard-won respect, stood to address the assembly. His Obsidian Guard had been among the first alien units to request human tactical advisors, and the results had been remarkable. The integration of human strategic thinking with Vorthak physical capabilities has created combat effectiveness beyond our previous achievements, he admitted. My warriors remain genetically superior in strength and speed, but human-trained officers have taught them to use those advantages with precision that was previously impossible. Lieutenant Commander Park Suman, promoted after her demonstration victory, now led the 3rd Combined Operations Unit, consisting of Vorthak warriors guided by human tactical doctrine. Her small team of advisors had transformed an already elite force into something approaching invincibility. The humans did not replace our methods, Commander Taiho continued. They improved them. They showed us how to think beyond the limitations of our own assumptions and adapt our natural strengths to any situation. Captain Resonance of Victory's crystalline form had been restructured to display new communication patterns that reflected its changed perspective on human capabilities. Mathematical analysis now includes variables for human adaptability factors. Previous calculations failed because they assumed static tactical parameters. Human conditioning creates dynamic optimization that transcends mathematical prediction. Major Kim Nari, previously Private Kim, had become the Alliance's leading expert on electronic warfare integration. Her understanding of how different species processed information had led to communication systems that allowed seamless coordination between races with completely different cognitive patterns. Silicate tactical precision, combined with human adaptive strategy, has achieved coordination efficiency ratings of 96%, Captain Resonance of Victory reported. This exceeds the theoretical maximum for crystalline collective intelligence operating independently. The Queen Speaker's collective voice had evolved to include harmonics that reflected their new understanding of individual consciousness as a tactical asset rather than a weakness. Swarm coordination protocols have been enhanced through human pattern recognition training. Individual units now maintain collective efficiency while developing adaptive responses to unexpected tactical situations. Colonel Kwok Yubin, the new director of the Alliance Adaptive Tactics Division, stood to present the most significant development of the past 6 months. The success of human-alien integration has led to requests from 17 additional species for inclusion in the Alliance Defense Network. Our tactical advisors are currently working with military forces across 83 worlds. The colonel manipulated a holographic display showing the current state of Alliance forces. Human advisors worked alongside alien officers in command structures that combined the best aspects of each species' military traditions. We have not replaced alien military doctrines, Colonel Kwok explained. Instead, we have shown each species how to transcend their inherent limitations while maximizing their natural advantages. Vorthak strength, silicate precision, swarm coordination, and dozens of other capabilities have been enhanced through human conditioning techniques and strategic thinking. Dr. Hong Mijin, now director of the Alliance Military Development Institute, presented the long-term implications of the integration process. Analysis of conditioning effectiveness across multiple species indicates that adaptability enhancement is not limited to humans. While our methods cannot be directly transferred to other biological systems, the principles can be adapted to optimize any form of consciousness. The implications were staggering. Humanity had not only joined the galactic community but had become its strategic and tactical heart. Human conditioning techniques were being adapted to enhance the natural capabilities of every species in the Alliance, creating military effectiveness that exceeded the sum of its parts. General Wan, now Supreme Allied Commander, addressed the final element of the transformation. The true strength of the Alliance lies not in the power of individual species, but in our collective ability to adapt and improve. Human conditioning has shown that any being, any strategy, any weapon system can be optimized beyond its original limitations. The general indicated the Alliance emblem that now appeared on uniforms throughout the galaxy. a modification of the original human design that incorporated symbolic elements from all member species. We have created something unprecedented in galactic history. Not a military alliance based on mutual defense, but a collective intelligence network that makes every member stronger than they could be alone. Ambassador Hana stepped forward for the final statement. 6 months ago, you asked what humanity could contribute to your alliance of superior species. Today, you have your answer. We brought the one thing that no amount of genetic enhancement, technological advancement, or collective consciousness could provide. She paused and looked at each of the alien delegates in turn, her calm gaze carrying the weight of demonstrated truth. We brought the ability to make everything better than it was before, not through replacement or domination, but through understanding and optimization. The conditioning techniques that created our soldiers can be adapted to enhance any form of intelligence, any military capability, any strategic doctrine. The chamber fell silent as the full implications of her words sank in. Humanity had not conquered the galaxy through superior force. They had made the galaxy conquer itself by showing every species how to transcend their own limitations. Commander Taiho spoke first, his voice carrying none of the arrogance that had characterized their first meeting. Vorthak Defense Corps requests continued integration with human tactical advisors. Our effectiveness has increased by 400% since beginning joint operations. Captain Resonance of Victory's crystalline form pulsed with calculated agreement. The silicate hegemony confirms similar results. Mathematical analysis indicates continued cooperation will yield exponential improvements in operational capability. The Queen Speaker's collective voice buzzed with harmonics of acceptance. The Swarm Collective acknowledges the superiority of adaptive enhancement over static perfection. Unity through diversity creates strength beyond collective consciousness alone. Over the following months, the transformation accelerated. Human advisors spread throughout Alliance space, not as conquerors but as teachers and partners. The conditioning techniques that had created Earth's elite soldiers were adapted to work with alien biology and psychology, creating enhanced capabilities that respected each species' nature while transcending their limitations. Lieutenant Colonel Park Suman found herself commanding a mixed-species task force that included Vorthak heavy assault troops, silicate precision specialists, and swarm coordination experts. The unit's effectiveness ratings exceeded anything previously recorded in galactic military history. The key, she explained to a gathering of Alliance officers, is understanding that enhancement and adaptation are not about changing what you are. They are about becoming the best version of what you already are. The training facility on Nexus Prime had been expanded into a massive complex where officers from dozens of species learned human conditioning techniques alongside traditional military doctrine. The planet that had witnessed humanity's first demonstration had become the center of a military revolution. Dr. Hong's research teams worked with alien scientists to develop conditioning programs tailored to each species' unique biology. Vorthak. Genetic enhancements were optimized through controlled expression techniques. Silicate mathematical processing was expanded through neural pathway development. Swarm collective intelligence was enhanced through individual adaptability training. The results exceeded every projection. Military units that combined human strategic thinking with alien capabilities achieved success rates that approached theoretical perfection. More importantly, they did so while maintaining the unique characteristics that made each species valuable. Admiral Song stood on the bridge of the Alliance flagship, a vessel that incorporated the